Hello everybody, back for another video. Let's see if we can get this turned away from the window a little bit. There we go. Just wanted to give some thoughts about the upcoming game tonight. Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Dallas. The dreaded Dallas Cowboys. One of the, I know it's not one of the Eagles' oldest rivalries, but it is one of the most hated rivals that we have as far as not only within the division but also in the league. There's no team that an Eagles fan hates more. There's no team that an Eagles fan loves to see Philadelphia dominate more than the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be an interesting matchup this week, and both times this season I think the Dallas game is going to, or the two Dallas games are going to be really, really contentious. I mean, even more so than usual. A couple things we want to talk about. I'm just kind of watching the first games, being that it's almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon now on the East Coast. And right now I've got Seattle, New Orleans on. I just finished watching the Bengals and Redskins playing over in London. That game, of course, ended in a tie, but which, first of all, before we talk about the Eagles game, that's one thing I want to mention. The second straight week, a game ends in a tie. Last week, it was the Sunday night game. I believe it was Arizona and Seattle played to a tie. Horrible, not horrible football, but some really bad mistakes at the very end of the game. Tight defenses, and then a lot of missed kicks. And then the Washington game today over in London, which, of course, I was rooting for Cincinnati to pull off the victory, because Washington is, of course, a division rival for the Eagles. But that didn't happen. They played to a tie. And the thought I want to give on this is, first and foremost, I think the NFL needs to seriously do away with ties. It really can screw with it really can screw with the season. A handful of years ago, when McNabb was still playing for Philadelphia, they played to a tie, and it ended up helping the Eagles that year, because that tie kept us one loss better than the other teams that were vying for a playoff spot. And it helped the Eagles. So I understand it can help teams in certain respects, but it also can just really screw with others. And I think it's time that the NFL, I mean, you look at a lot of other professional sports, they don't end in ties. I think what the NFL has done with the overtime rules is really good. If you score a touchdown, the game's over. If you only get a field goal, then the other team gets a chance to score or possess the ball. So I think that those rules are great. But do away with the clock. Either that or just keep adding to it, play extra periods. But just do away with the games being played out to a tie. I mean, it really is, there's no point to it. And it really just ends up hurting season records, I think, overall. So that's just my opinion. Do away with ties. Play the game out till there's a winner. This is professional sports. Play it out till there's a winner. Don't send everybody home with a tie. It's just very disappointing from a fan's perspective. So anyway, there's my thoughts on that. Now the thoughts on the game today, or tonight, I should say. Eagles traveling down to Dallas for the Sunday night game, the primetime game. My thoughts on this are few videos ago, I said that one of the last games that I was really afraid of was the Minnesota game. I thought we could compete with Dallas, and I still think that. I think we can compete with Dallas. However, they're looking scarier than some of our other games that we have left on the schedule. So Dallas is going to pose some interesting challenges to us. Number one, the shakiness and inconsistency of our defense really scares me against a team like Dallas because, number one, all right, let's face it, Dallas has the best offensive line in the league. Not just by my opinion. These are a lot of stats, and the talent level that they have on the offensive line is just superior to anybody else. So if our inconsistent defense is the defense that decides to show up in Dallas, we're going to get hammered. Dak Prescott has proven to be a very efficient, very effective rookie quarterback, just like Carson Wentz. And he's got a great offensive line in front of him to protect him. Now, with that being said, the Cowboys really haven't faced any really, really hard, nasty defenses yet. And even though they have the greatest offensive line in the league, I firmly believe, and I might show some bias with this, but I firmly believe, and I don't think I'm alone in this, in thinking that our defensive line and our defensive players, with Fletcher Cox, Connor Barwin, this isn't one of the linemen, but Malcolm Jenkins, the pressure that we've been able to put on some of the quarterbacks that we play against has been really, at times, really, really dominantly good. And I think if that's the defense that shows up, then we've got ourselves a game where the Eagles could really dominate. Because I think our offense can move the ball with the best of them. So with that being said, my thoughts for the game, the key to the game is going to be two things. One more so than the other. The first one I want to talk about is Carson Wentz's second primetime game. He's got the first one under his belt. I don't think there's going to be a lot of pressure. I think he has to show up, play smart, much more efficient football than he has the last couple of weeks with some of the turnovers, not forcing it quite as much. Move the offense, score some points, which I think we can do. The biggest key I think that we need to look at for success for the Eagles for tonight is to have the defensive line get to harass and hit Dak Prescott a whole bunch. Excuse me. If we're able to put just pressure on him, just get in his face and harass him. If we can do that, and he then begins to struggle a little bit more than he has so far this season, then the game becomes a lot more competitive in our favor. And I think we're able to then turn it up. We need to see that defense that has been showing up, the defense that showed up against Minnesota, the defense that showed up against Pittsburgh, the defense that has shown up during part of the Chicago game, where we're harassing people. I'm not saying we need 10, 12 sacks. I'm not saying we need, to force 3 or 4 fumbles. It'd be great if we could, or pick 3 or 4 passes off. I'm not saying that. We need to get in Dak Prescott's face. We need to alter his thinking. We need to affect his passes, and just harass him as much as possible. But do so in a smart way. And I think Jim Schwartz will have the guys ready to do that. If we do that, then I think this becomes a really good game for the Eagles. I don't know. I'm trying to think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So far this year, I don't think Dallas has played a primetime game. I'm trying to think because I usually catch all the primetime games, and I don't think Dallas. Maybe they have. Maybe it was early in the season. I'd have to look to be sure. But in any case, I don't know that they've played in a primetime game, and that could play a factor for Dak Prescott. There's some more pressure. They're at home. Eagles, division rival, coming to town. If we can get in his head and harass him and force him to start doing things that are inconsistent for him, get him to be inconsistent, then I think we have a very, very good shot at winning this game. So those are some of my thoughts. I think that, like I said, the of any key to the game, of any key to winning this game, the one I think that stands out the most is our defensive line. I mean the defense in general, of course, but the defensive line specifically, they need to get into Dak Prescott's face. If they can do that, put some pressure on him, force him to make a few mistakes, have the rest of the defense capitalize on those mistakes, and then our offense just continues to score, 20, somewhere between 20, 30 points, I think we win the game. I don't want to give out a prediction of a score. It's going to be dependent on those things. If we force them to make some mistakes, we win the game, period. If our inconsistent defense